I was reading this OSHO book the other day, and I came across quite an interesting passage, which I found quite relevant to life in general, and also specifically to parenting. So I will read you the passage now, so you can have some context. Trust in life, then you cannot lose anything. But that trust cannot come by indoctrination. That trust cannot come by education, preaching, studying, thinking. That trust can only come by experiencing life in all its opposites, in all its contradictions, in all its paradoxes. When within all the paradoxes you come to a point of balance, there is trust. Trust is a perfume of balance, the fragrance of balance. If you really want to attain trust, drop all your beliefs. They will not help. A believing mind is a stupid mind. A trusting mind has pure intelligence in it. A believing mind is a mediocre mind. A trusting mind becomes perfect. Trust makes perfect. And the difference between belief and trust is simple. I am not talking about the dictionary meaning of the words. In the dictionary, it may be so. Belief means trust. Trust means faith. Faith means belief. I am talking about existence. In an existential way, belief is borrowed. Trust is yours. Belief you believe in, but doubt exists underneath. Trust has no doubt element in it. It is simply devoid of doubt. Belief creates a division in you. A part of your mind believes, a part of your mind denies. Trust is a unity in your being, your totality. But how can your totality trust unless you have experienced it? So this is from a book from OSHO called From the Man Who Loved Seagulls, Chapter 1, Walking the Tightrope, as your reference. So this point of trust versus belief is one I have to remind myself often, and have been reminding myself often in walking with my son Caesar, who's just turned 3 recently. Where things that seem self-evident to me, I assume are self-evident to him. And I take for granted the experiences I had to go through to realize or understand those particular points that seem self-evident to me. Let's take a very simple example, say a sharp knife. He's working with a sharp knife. And you know, it's so easy to go, be careful with a knife, or just put the knife down, or you just take it away. Where within that approach, you're imposing a belief, where your child now has to believe and borrow your trust that this knife is sharp and can hurt them, but they don't actually know. And within that, there'll be like this secret, not that it's secret, but more, there's like a latent curiosity for them to find out if this is really so. You know, if I look back at my childhood, I hated it when my parents told me because I said so, where there's that imposition of belief and you're not allowed to find out for yourself or to even challenge whatever it is your parents are saying. So what I've learned to do with, for instance, the knife example is to, instead of imposing a belief, look at, okay, how did I find out that knives are sharp? Because I experienced it. Once I experience it, I know it and I can trust that, yes, that knife is sharp. But now, it's also not to just let your child play with a knife and then them finding out that the knife is really sharp in a consequential way. Instead, what I'll do is, if he's handling a sharp knife, is to immediately draw his attention to the sharp point, to the sharp edges, to let him touch it gently, so he can experience that the knife is sharp, the sharp point, the sharp edges. Now he has experienced it. He doesn't have to believe me. He can trust himself. He knows that this knife is sharp. Now there's no latent curiosity to go and find out on his own, where I may not be able to dare to prevent any consequential outflows from happening. And now, this knife point example is but a small example of how easy it is to place a belief on your child instead of letting them walk an experience of trust. Where was I? Oh yeah, so this is just but one example of how easy it is to impose a point of belief on your child where you kind of want to circumvent them walking through the experience, and you just want them to have the end result. But the thing is, without the experience, there will always be that inner conflict, like Osho said, like on the one hand you believe, but on the other hand you're also denying it. There's this inner conflict that's always there. And like I said, the knife example is but a small daily point, but this belief versus trust point is also important to look at in greater points, like say food and dietary choices, where we as adults, we've already walked a particular process with foods, finding out what foods support our bodies, or how to create a balance between, say, snacks and wholesome foods, where from our perspective we just want to give our children, like, this is how it works and this is what's best for you, and because I went through it, and now you must just follow what I'm saying, where for children there's this like, whoa, what's going on here? And you have to allow them to walk that path, to walk through the experience, to gain the experience of finding out what works for me, what doesn't work for me. If I do this, what's the feedback, what's the consequence? And even in other points, say relationships, sex, any choice or decision our children are gonna make or being faced with, they're gonna want to find out for themselves. And the more we as parents go into fear and want to protect our children, the more they're just gonna want to find out, but do it in a way where you're not part of that decision, where they do it in secret, where you can't be there to guide them and support them. I mean, like, I've even heard mothers sharing where, say, their children are stealing from the shops. They're stealing sweets because at home they're not allowed to have any foods with added sugar. And now it's a belief imposed upon the child. The child is not allowed to experience and test out, like, okay, what is this sugar thing, and how much can I actually handle of this, and is this really bad for my body? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I'd like to find out for myself. I don't want to borrow your trust. I want to be able to trust myself and my experience. And in the end, all we can do as parents really is to equip our children with the best tools and support that we have, but in the end, it's going to be their decision. And they're going to walk what they need to walk to find out what they need to find out. And as much as we'd like to protect them and have them just get what we're seeing, it's better to let them just find out, because they're going to find out anyway. And then you're not going to be part of it. And whenever these points open up, I mean, it's actually quite a cool opportunity for us parents to reflect on, okay, who am I? Why am I going into so much fear? Why do I want to protect my child? Maybe bring it back to yourself and look at, okay, where am I being protective of myself? Where am I afraid to go into certain experiences? Where am I afraid of making mistakes? Maybe there's many things you want to explore but haven't explored because there's points of belief still limiting you. Still trust points that you've been borrowing from other people, but you don't actually know. You haven't actually found out for yourself what it's like. So I think walking this point with children is amazing, because they're gonna come up. You're gonna face those fear points. So then you might as well bring it back to yourself and see where you can expand. So that's just what I wanted to share after reading this passage from Osho. Thank you for listening.